Good morning, my dear students, wherever you are. I'm so happy for teaching you this year. My name is Mr. Muhammad Izzat, teacher of biology. Your biology contents this year will be very easy and very interesting, so I wish you all the best of luck. If you want to have a look at whatever you are going to learn, we will cover some points belonging to number 1, plants, number 2, human, number 3, cells and organisms, number 4, things here in the environment, and the last point that we are going to cover concerning to variation and classification. I think you are familiar with some living organisms, especially plants, and all of us like and love plants in the form of trees, flowers, wonderful plants. The most important point here, we have to cover number 1, parts of the plants, the most important parts of the plants and their functions. If you look at this diagram for such a plant, you can notice that it consists of different parts, different organs, and each organ has its own function. For instance, the main 2 parts of the plants are number 1, part of the plants that grows down under the soil, which is called root system, and the second part that grows above the plant, which is called shoot system. So how many systems do we have in the plant? Number 1, root system, which grows down under the soil surface. Number 2, part number 2, shoot system, which grows above the soil surface. If you look at part number 1, which is the root system that goes downward under the soil, you can notice that it consists of here, we call this part of the plant the main root. And from the main root, some branches extending sideways like those. This part is called lateral roots. So the main part of the root, which is called main taproot and lateral roots in the form of branches. And if you look carefully at the branches here on the right and left side, you can observe that there are very small branches extending out from the lateral roots, which are called root hairs, like the hairs in the human, root hairs. So, number 1, the part of the plant that grows under the soil is called root system. The root system grows above the soil or under the soil? Yes, under the soil surface. It consists of number 1, main root, number 2, lateral roots. From the lateral roots, some branches extending out, which are called root hairs. Number 2, the part of the plant that grows above the soil is called shoot system. The shoot system consists of mainly the stem, and the stem carries on its body many organs, such as leaves, fruit, flowers, buds, and terminal bud. Each organ, each part on the plant body has its own function. For example, the root system is responsible to, number 1, to fix the plant in the soil, so that it will not be pulled away by a strong wind. Number 1, the root system is responsible to fix the plant in the soil. Number 2, the root system is responsible to take in water and minerals, to absorb water and minerals from the soil, then transports water and minerals to the stem to distribute it to all parts of the plant. Once again, the root system is consisting of main root, lateral roots, and branches extending from the lateral roots called root hairs. The root hairs are very important part of the root system because they are responsible to absorb water and minerals from the soil. To absorb water and minerals from the soil. Then transport or transfer water and minerals from the soil to the stem. The stem then distributes water and minerals to all parts of the plant. This is the first function of the root system. Also, the root system has very important function is to fix the plant in the soil. The plant is fixed in the soil due to the presence of the root system. Number two, shoot system consists of mainly the stem, and the stem carries on its body many organs such as the leaves, the fruit, the flowers, and here we have buds, and at the top of the plant is called terminal bud. Each one of them has its own function. For instance, the stem, it transports water and minerals from the root system and distribute it to all parts of the plant. So you have to be aware about the function of the root system and the shoot system, especially the stem. Which one of them is responsible to take in or absorb water and minerals? The roots. Which one of them is responsible to transport? There is a big difference between taking in and transfers. Absorbing and transports. The part of the plant which is responsible to absorb water and minerals, the roots. Take in water and minerals, absorb water and minerals from the soil. Or the part of the plant which is responsible to transfer or to transport water and minerals, which is the stem. Good. Leaves are considered from the most important part of the plant. Why? Because here in the leaves there is a very important process takes place in order to allow the plant to survive. This process is called photosynthesis. Photosynthesis takes place especially in the green leaves. That's why the scientists call the plant leaves food factories. Why the plant leaves are called food factories? Because the leaves of the plant contains great number of green cells called chlorophyll, chloroplast, or even chloroplastids that you are going to learn once again in the next years. These green pigments, these green cells are responsible to absorb sunlight from the sun and take this energy to transfer the food of the plant from carbon dioxide and water into sugar and starch. Without photosynthesis process, the plants will not survive. The plants will die. This process takes place, this process happens especially inside the green leaves. That's why the green leaves are called food factories. Why the green leaves are called food factories? Because they are responsible to make photosynthesis process. Because they contain green cells, these green cells or these green pigments responsible to absorb sunlight from the sun. Number three, the fruit containing seeds. And the seeds produce new plants of the same kind. Flowers, the organ of reproduction or the reproductive organ of the plants. And the next year, grade 8, you will learn how do plants reproduce. How do plants reproduce? Reproduction process among plants take place through the flowers. Finally, the terminal bud. The terminal bud is found at the top of the plant. Here. The terminal bud represented by very small and closed leaves around themselves. When the plant stem is growing upward, increasing the length, is becoming taller. These small clove leaves are open at the two sides of the stem body, forming the leaves. One last time, most of the flowering plants are consisting of two main parts. Number one, root system, which grows downward under the soil, and it is responsible to absorb water and minerals from the soil. Number two, to fix the plant in the soil. Number two, the shoot system is consisting of many parts. The most important part of the shoot system is the stem. The stem carries on its body some important organs like leaves, fruit, flowers, buds, and terminal bud. Leaves are considered from the food factories of the plant because inside the leaves, photosynthesis process take place because they contain green pigment or green cells. These green cells or pigments are responsible to absorb sunlight from the sun to make photosynthesis process. Fruit containing seeds which contain seeds to produce plants of the same kind. Flowers, the organs of reproduction in the plant. Finally, at the top of the stem, very small and closed leaves around each other called terminal bud. So, here we have some exceptions among all the plants. During photosynthesis process, what do plants need to make their own food? Plants need to make their own food some raw materials which are existing in the environment, like carbon dioxide, number one. Number two, water from the soil. Number three, sunlight from the sun. We can call these three required materials, we can call them conditions. Why they are called conditions? Because if one of these conditions is absent, the plants will not make photosynthesis process. If there are carbon dioxide around the plants, sunlight from the sun, and there is no water to take in by the roots, the plants will not make photosynthesis process. If water is allowed to be taken in by the root system, and you put the plant under sunny area, under the sun rays, and this area is free, there is no carbon dioxide, the plants will not make photosynthesis process. And even if you supply the plant with carbon dioxide and water and put the plant for a long time in a dark room, the plants will not make photosynthesis process due to the absence of the sunlight. That's why they are called conditions. Shoot. If one of these conditions is absent, the plants will not make photosynthesis process. Some organs of the plants have certain characteristics, يعني صفات محددة كده, to allow their functions. For instance, the root system that grows downward under the soil, as I have said, explained before, responsible to take in water and minerals from the soil. Good. I have mentioned that root system is consisting of main root and branches extending from the main root called lateral roots. Sometimes the shape of the root system in such a plant is looking like this one. Most of the plants, or the majority of the plants, their root system are growing downward. And sometimes some of the plants, their root system are growing downward and sideways, like this diagram. In some exceptions, some plants, the root system are grown up near the surface of the soil. This is not in all the plants. we can call this shape of the plant an exception. يعني بعض الاستثناءات. يعني مش كل plants, not all the plants, their root system are grown upward near the soil surface. And there must be a reason. Some plants as orchids, the roots, as you can see here in this diagram, in this figure, the roots are grown up near the soil surface, and the rest of the root system grown downward. So some of the branches of the root system grown up the surface of the soil, and most of the root system grown downward. That's why they cannot be pulled away by the strong wind. Why some branches of this plant, of the roots, especially the roots, are grown up near the soil surface? There must be a reason. Why? In some plants, as mangrove tree, some of its root branches are grown up or near the soil surface to get drops of water in the early morning. If this area of its growth suffers from insufficient water, or the water is not enough, so some branches are grown near the surface of the soil to absorb water from mist, from dew in the early morning, from the evaporation of water around the plants. So this is a kind of an exception. Concerning to the stem, most of people knows, or they think that the stem is a rigid one that grows in a straight way like a ruler, but some plants, their stems are grown up in a very strange way, like this one. Some plants, their stem is very weak and takes the shape of a coil, like this one. And some plants, their stems are fleshy, parietal, than cactus. Cactus is considered from the plants which is growing up in the desert. So it grows in the form of juicy stem. Juicy, it contains juice like liquids, fluids. And the shape of the stem of very popular plant, ginger, اللي الزنجبيل, it takes the shape of this one. So if you are asked to explain the shape of a stem in such a plant, don't say that all the plant stems are grown up straight forward. No, some of them takes the coil shape, some of them takes the shape of juicy one surrounded by or covered with spines as cactus plant, and ginger has a different shape, completely different from the straight one. This is concerned with the stem. What about the leaves? Also the leaves of the plants take different shapes. They are not look like each other. They don't look like each other. Some of the leaves of the plants are long and thin, like this one. Some of them take the spear shape, some of them take the oval shape, and some of them are divided into lobes, 1, 2, 3 lobes, 1, 2, 3 lobes. Some of them take round shape, almost looking like a circle, but it is not equal a circle. It is not looking like a circle. It looks from distance, large distance, long distance, as a round shape. And some of them can catch insects. In the next years, you will understand that in order to make photosynthesis process, plants need some conditions, as I have mentioned right now. They need carbon dioxide from the air, water from the soil, sunlight from the sun. If these three conditions are available for the plants will make photosynthesis process and make their food, produce their own food. The food of the plant is called carbohydrates. Sugar, which will turn to starch by the effect of some minerals from the soil. Sugar, which will turn into starch by the help of some minerals from the soil. Then The plants transport, transfer, or change the starch into proteins. Some types of the plants are able to take carbon dioxide from the air, are able to absorb water from the soil, are able to take in sunlight from the sun and make photosynthesis process, forming sugar, forming starch, but they are not able, they cannot change or transfer starch into proteins. So how can they get their protein source? By predation or by taking in insects. Some types of the flowers have very nice looking to attract insects. Once when the insects are coming inside, they close and they secrete some juices to digest the insects and absorbing proteins. But in most of the plants, they are able to take carbon dioxide from the air, water from the soil, sunlight from the sun, and make their own food, sugar which will turn into starch, and they are able to change starch into proteins. But the fewer or some types of the plants are not capable to transport or to change starch into protein. So how can they get their protein need to grow up? By predation some insects. So we can conclude from the previous discussions that the stems of all plants are not looking alike. They have different shapes. Plants have different shapes of the leaves. Plants have different shapes of the roots. What about the flowers? Flowers are considered the reproductive organs of the plants, and they take different shapes. They are not looking like each other. Some of them have the bell shape like the bell ring, some of them have the star shape, some of them have saucer shaped عامل زي الفنجان كده, and some of them taking the shape of the tubes. Finally, the buds are different shape, size and color, and they are spreading all over the plant's body.